So our next speaker is Charles Mwangi. He is acting director at the Kenya Space Agency, and his presentation will be on data for decisions in Africa. So, Charles, the floor is yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Alexia. Confirm that you can see my slides?
Yes, we do. We do. Please proceed.
Thank you. So, thank you, Alexia, for this opportunity to share a bit of the insights on what my thoughts are in terms of issues around data. And I want to build up on to what Davis was expounding on, where Africa has a long heritage in matters of space, but it still have not been able to maximize on the utilization of space technology. Whereas we all know the potential of space and what it would mean in life, and I've given a few examples of areas where that technology is evolved. And this sometimes we lose out on these elements, and sometimes we get carried away by the upstream. And of course, the upstream is usually very interesting because you have the launch, you have the rockets, you have the satellites. And sometimes within our region, we do not understand the value proposition of space. And that is why I thought it was important to enhance or to have this conversation in terms of the data, because it is from data that you're able to make meaning for space. Initially, of course, the reasons why the space technology was being developed was because of other reasons. But the value proposition over the years have far exceeded what was then envisioned. And within our region in Africa, and I believe in most of the developing countries, the value proposition is still not properly understood in terms of how then we can use space to address our societal need. There was a study that was done some time back in Kenya in 20, it was late 2016, I think 2017. And then we were in the process of establishing the some national units. And the study was to understand what the issues were in terms of the adoption of the geospatial technology. And that challenge still exists today. There are issues around hardware, issues around software, issues around data. Until when you're able to address most of this, then we stop being able to derive value from utilizing space technology. And one of the things that we have done as an agency is to try and explore how then we can leverage on what is currently existing, because some of the gaps or some of the challenges that were then identified in the study was the cost of the software were expensive. Of course, the computers then were expensive, and the data was also not available. And the interventions then that we sought was to try and see how we could address those issues around hardware, software, and then data. And I picked a slide that tries to show the key challenges facing Africa's data. Where is the access in terms of data access and usability of data? It is still limited. There is a lot of influence from beyond. The capacity in terms of us being able to use the data, even to collect sometimes, is a challenge. The priorities are also misrepresented because sometimes you also have, given that much of the support comes from the development partners, they do influence in terms of what the focus areas are. The quality of the data, the funding, the availability. And what we've been trying to do as an agency within these ecosystems, try and see how then can we resolve or address those challenges. And one of the things that we noticed was that data is not findable. It is not accessible. It is not interoperable, and it is also not usable. And what we've done is in fact, in the next couple of weeks or so, we should be able to launch this data hub, which has 3 components. So we have a data portal, we have a data cube, and a knowledge hub. So the data hub, the data portal is essentially where we centralize the data, because most of the times there is no centralized location where that data is freely accessible. And again, we have done thematic areas to try and just provide that information for ease of decision support. So I talked about the data cube. The reason why the data cube for us was important is because it's an open source platform that allows us to manage the data, at the same time being able to operate on the data and gain insights. And again, given that it is free, it means that it addresses some of the issues that I mentioned earlier, or the issues about the cost. But now we have to understand how the data ecosystem is organized so that we are able to benefit, or we are able to be able to derive maximum benefit from the setting. And that slide here just gives you an overview of the different components where different players could find a role in. And Davis indicated the value of the African space ecosystem is about 20 billion. When you compare it to the global space ecosystem, which is, you're talking about 400, 500 billion, it's less than 5% of the global economy, the global space economy. So the question is then, how then we leverage on elements of acquisition? How do we leverage on elements of dissemination? And because all these can be taken as services that people could subscribe to. When you look at the other side of issues around governance, then it means that they have to be agencies that make a deliberate effort to ensure that their data governance issues are addressed, ensuring data is accessible, ensuring that the users understand the potential of using that data. And also, more importantly, and I mentioned that earlier, creating the platforms where then we can use that data, or that data can be accessed by the stakeholders. And if we have all these elements, when we have view of all these elements, then it allows us within our ecosystem to understand the value proposition of data and how then we can use data for decision support. And I'll end up there in terms of the presentation, because again, I just wanted to give a highlight by indicating it's a new concept that has come to the fore, where we're saying, is data the new oil? And for me, I see a lot of value and a lot of opportunities for Africa, because if you're able to harness, one, the data in terms of the systems, being able to have your data, because it is only then when you have a legacy of data over time that you're able to get new insights. It is only then that you're also able to evaluate the different data sets to be able to gain new insights. And then based on that, then you're able to do the decisioning. The last image there is one of the platforms that was recently launched from Kenya, the Taifa One Seller that was launched in April. But it is also one of the efforts within the Kenya to try and ensure that you're able to secure that resource that you're calling the data. So again, thank you for the opportunity. I will wait up on the questions and happy to share any new insights. But again, the challenge that I am extending is then how we, as a developing country, can we leverage on this new potential that data is going to allow us to benefit from.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your presentation. May I ask one question very quickly about the data hub? So are you planning to make it open access, so anybody can get information from it, data from it, right?
Yes, we are planning to have it as open source, open to the users, but it has 2 levels. So there is data that we know sometimes has to be within the certain domains of government. So we have 2 levels where you have data that is freely accessible, layers that even people, it has basic analytics where you can overlay for the portal where you can overlay the different data sets. Now, more importantly is the data queue, meaning that you could potentially be able to, using the same data sets, being able to run scripts. For those who know about Jupyter Notebooks and the like, then you're able to run scripts. And then what we're also doing with the data portal for the data cube is that we are subsetting global data set to Kenya. So we're looking for any information that talks to Kenya and then putting it there. And then that allows now the community to have any data sets that they would potentially need for Kenya without necessarily be able to run analysis and then be able to generate maps or derive generate products that then you can go ahead and use for decisions.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation.